Hey guys, here's a unique system for you. This is Ending Man Terminator 2. And the Terminator 2 was a common name for Famicom clone in Eastern Europe and Asia. Famicom clones were so common in parts of Asia and Eastern Europe, I mean dating back to the early 90s, that they kind of got their own nickname. That's a Famiclone. You've probably heard the term Famiclone before, and Famiclone of course just means Famicom clone, or a Nintendo clone, NES clone. And this one's kind of funny. The first thing you'll notice is the Super Design logo, which is completely ripping off the Japanese Mega Drive logo with the red M and the green D, and it has that same design on the D almost. It's very obviously that they ripped off. Actually, in terms of this one, they pretty much ripped off the entire packaging for a Japanese Mega Drive Model 2. Very similar packaging from what I remember. And I guess the system itself in some ways kind of looks like a Sega Genesis, but it's actually an NES or Famicom clone, like I said. They show on the box here 2 controllers, and interestingly enough they show headphones plugging into the bottom of the controllers. You can see on the box there they show an antenna. Some of these had wireless RF, wireless to the television. Kind of a silly idea, because especially on these cheaper clones, you know it's not going to be the best picture quality going across the wireless. But these clones did like a million different things to try and make themselves unique. Like I said, they were so popular. There's literally hundreds of thousands of different Famicom clones, and they all try to, like, you know, look unique or have some neat feature about them to get your attention. This one on here, you can see it says new 9999999, and I'll show you what that's about when we get inside. Moving to the back. Once again, a lot of stuff on here to get your attention. Once again, a picture of the system here. We have Street Fighter II. Now, obviously, Street Fighter II was never actually released on the Famicom, other than in pirate form. So I don't know if they're actually advertising the pirate version of Street Fighter II for the NES. It looks like they are right there. Make sure that camera focuses on that. There's actually Street Fighter II, the pirate version for the NES. We can see a picture here of the phaser, or the light gun that this would have came with. Okay, now I don't have the phaser with it. You can see here where the phaser would have been. And by the way, I should mention, I got this for free because it doesn't work. I was in a pawn shop that I've dealt with many times, and I'd seen this sitting there before, and he did mention the last time that it didn't work. So then he just gave it to me for free. He's like, oh, if you want it, you can take it. So I was like, oh, okay. It's kind of cool as a collector's piece, I guess. Some people actually collect these Famiclones. Take a look at the controller first. It actually doesn't feel too bad, surprisingly. Got a start select button on there, obviously. We have the B and the A buttons, and then we have the B and the A turbo buttons. And yeah, there is the headphone jack on there, surprisingly. So that's pretty cool, but there's no volume knob. I don't see a volume knob anywhere. The power jack, this is not the right power jack for it. And like I said, this system does not work. So let's take a look at the system itself here. It says the world's most popular computer video game system. Obviously referring to the Famicom or the NES. I don't think they're referring to this thing specifically. As we can see here, once again, it says Ending Man on it. It says Terminator, but it doesn't say Terminator 2 there. And a model number BS500AS. 2 controller ports on the front are the same controller ports, same as the single controller port on the front of a Famicom. So I'm only assuming that you could plug these controllers into a Famicom and use them. I haven't tried that, but that would make sense to me. a little flap that you kind of have to push out of the way to put the Famicom game in there. So there's the 60-pin connector. Nice power button with a power light, which is kind of funny because the actual Famicom doesn't have a power light on it, and the cheap clone here does. Eject button, sort of like a Super Nintendo actually, the way that eject button feels. Reset button, obviously. On the back here it has the AC adapter, and then here it's kind of weird because it says audio and it's closest to the yellow, and then it says video and it's closest to the red. So I don't know if that just means audio video, and then this one says RF wire. Now we know the NES was never stereo, so are they actually using this as the video, even though it says audio, and then the sound here, mono sound, and this is RF, I guess? It's kind of weird. It's badly labeled, and obviously the colors wouldn't really make sense for how it's labeled. On the bottom, some vents here where you can kind of see that maybe the mold didn't come out perfectly on that one there. It's a little bit funky looking there. And it says computer game, power 4 watts, AC adapter, and PAL. I haven't bothered to test this, but I did plug in a Genesis power adapter into here. And once again, it didn't power up. Now, there's no specs on the system. Like, it doesn't tell you if it takes, 9 volts. So yeah, I'm not sure exactly what it should take, but you would think 9 volts DC would at least turn it on. This is what it came with. Now, the reason I know it's not the stock power thingy for it is it does say Creative on it. Obviously it's something to do with Creative Labs computer speakers or something. And this is 9 volts AC output. Now if this took DC and someone plugged in AC, that would certainly fry the system, and in that case that would be why it doesn't work. So yeah, once again, it doesn't work, but being PAL and being just a cheap clone, I have a real Famicom anyways. I have Famicom adapters for the NES. The thing's of no real useful value to me. It's just kind of a cool, rare, oddball collector's item to have, and like I said, the guy gave it to me for free, so that's kind of cool. Now this cartridge was in here, and this is what I was talking about on the front of the box, where they're talking about 9999999 in one. Yeah, there's basically 5 games on here, and none of them are related to the picture on the front, which is just pathetic. Like I said, these systems really tried to get your attention. And I suppose if you saw this, you'd be really excited, saying that it has a bazillion games in one. It shows Tomb Raider. It's funny there, it says Silicone Chick for Lara Croft. Soccer, Aladdin, whatever that's supposed to be. Street Fighter, can't quite read that. It's Street Fighter 2 Alpha, or whatever. Like I said, none of those games are actually on here. There's really about 5 games on here, Super Mario Brothers being one of them. And basically what they do is every level in Super Mario Brothers is an option on the menu. So like World 1 level 3 is in the menu, and World 4 level 4 is in the menu. And then they have like hacked versions of Super Mario Brothers where you jump higher, and then every one of those has its level in the menu. So there may be thousands of things in the menu, but it's all just like variations or levels or hacks of basically the same 5 games, and they just show up in the menu over and over and over, and it has no organization or anything to it. Half the things in the menu you can't even read because they get cut off. So it's really silly, really lame actually. This multi-cart is extremely lame. But yeah. Now, for some of you who think that this is, okay, the early Famicom clones, back in the early 90s, like when Famiclones started to come out, and I've mentioned this before, that Famiclones came out in a lot of Eastern European countries, obviously a lot of Soviet countries, Ukraine, Russia, places like that, that Nintendo did not sell the actual NES there. So their only option was to buy a clone. And over there they had the popular, like the Dandy Famiclones, Dandy Famicoms. Now, they were a clone, but basically what they did was they weren't Nintendo on a chip, obviously. We think of the clones nowadays, like the Yovo FC, they're Nintendo on a chip. NOAC. I've talked about NOACs before, but basically you'd have all the chips and processors inside an NES consolidated into one modern little ISIC. And that's what's in like the Yovo FC that I have. And most, I shouldn't even say most, basically all clones now are Nintendo on a chip. But the old clones, they didn't have that, you know, technology back then to take all the chips and processors in an NES and put it into one. So it actually had like basically the equivalent off-the-shelf parts of all the processors inside an NES. And a lot of people that have the Terminator or the Terminator 2 were telling me that it's not an NOAC. It's actually going to have all the off-the-shelf processors inside. Oddly enough, I open this up, and I'm going to open it up again and show you. This is an NOAC. So this may be a later version of the Terminator 2 clone compared to an earlier version. This may even be in some way a clone of a clone. As stupid as that sounds. Okay, so I've got the 4 screws out of this thing, and pretty much just opens up like so. The wires going to the power LED here on the top. Got basically 3 boards here. I mean, the front board obviously just has the controller ports on it, and you know, the power and reset buttons. And then there's this middle circuit board here, which has the actual 60-pin connector on it. And then the rear circuit board here, which has like the voltage regulation and the AV outputs and stuff. So this is an NOAC. I mean, I guess you can't see it because it's actually on the other side of this board. You go like so. You can see it through there. See that plastic blob looking thing? Kind of hard to see. There we go. That plastic blob is the blob top. That's the NOAC. So that's one little chip in there that's running the whole show. So this is a Terminator 2, and it is an NOAC. But like I said, it doesn't work. So yeah, it's kind of cool. Thought you guys might like to see that. So there you go. See you later.